what your role has been.
It's been a pleasure to get to join forces with the center, even though I'm in Colorado and you guys are in Phoenix. It seems far away, but I feel like we're one in spirit in what we believe is important for people to live a fully balanced life. So whenever I can, at least once a year, I come down and teach a few classes at one of your retreats. And I benefit from all of the other offerings that you provide locally because I can use those as examples for things that we do in Colorado.
So share a little bit about your philosophy and how it's like-minded with the Center for Living Well.
Well, just like we were talking about live well, love God, it became really instrumental to me at a point in time when I was working really hard to do everything I was supposed to do in order to live a good Christian life. And I really just came to my knees and said, God, I don't have the energy and I don't really know how to make this happen. I don't know how to be a really good example, a godly Christian woman, an example for my kids. And I don't know what I'm supposed to teach my kids when I can't handle it myself. And the verse that he brought to me was in actually the book of Mark, my favorite one. It's mentioned several times in the Bible, in the Gospels, and in Deuteronomy 9. But Mark is the only writer who actually translated it, the greatest commandment. There's only one thing, and it's this: to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and all your strength. It really does balance the scale, and that's exactly what the Center for Living Well teaches. It makes me excited to be a part of what you do. I stumbled into yoga to try to save myself from bashing my head against a wall or maybe destroying one of my children, because I needed to learn how to breathe. I needed to learn how to balance myself. I didn't really have the ingredients to do that in any of the other activities I've been involved in. I've been a fitness instructor since 1997, 96, and even taught fitness classes when I was pregnant, and I was hardcore. But I didn't understand the full balance of having the emotional and the intellectual charge of God's Spirit really working equally in all of those areas of my life. And one of the reasons that I started teaching yoga was because I really saw the physical benefit for me. My body was just made for it. I said, where has this been all my life when I first discovered it? But as I was in my fitness classes, I don't like to attend a fitness class that's playing music that doesn't inspire me, because it's all about your soul as well. Your heart, your mind, everything works together, and if the music is really bad or non-existent, then it's not a full experience. And so I started doing yoga to Christian music, and that was fun. And when I realized that I needed to become certified in order to continue teaching yoga, just to get into gyms and things like that, I started looking into certifications, and a friend of mine had ghostwritten a book for Brooke Boone, and she hooked me up to give her a call. And so that's how I ended up being introduced to Holy Yoga. And I tell this story because it's so funny. Every time somebody asks me how I got involved in Holy Yoga, in Christian yoga in general, I thought I had a lot to offer because I'm a really good teacher. And then I came and realized that you guys have mastered something that is so far beyond what I ever knew or understood. I was humbled and floored when I came here. And I've learned so much from you. And you were one of my first teachers. And now you're certifying people yourself. And it's really a pleasure for me to watch that. I love to see you share your gift.
And what do you get out of it?
Well, I had been teaching yoga kind of in a YMCA kind of environment for a while. But I always like to use my own music. So I used my own Christian music to teach and wanted to become certified by an organization that really saw Jesus at the center of yoga, because I believe that it's sanctified by God. It's not created by or for any religion, but it is clear in Scripture that we can use this to become closer to God and to worship on the mat. And the Center for Living Well is exactly what I need for a template for how to do this right. I had to stop and think about that, because my life is so chaotic and busy with 3 kids and a full-time job, and I try to plug a few yoga classes in my spare time. I often just show up, and I don't prepare to the extent that you teach us to prepare. And it humbles me to come here and see it done right, because when I actually show up at a class and realize that these people have come here to get something bigger than what I know how to deliver, I have to depend on God. And the beautiful thing is, He comes through every time. And He's not shaming me for not doing it right. In fact, I come out of it going, okay, God, I know that this is not an excuse to not prepare, but I have to admit it's beautiful when I don't, because sometimes when I do get a chance to prepare, it's overthought, and it's leaning on my own words and my own ability and not on the Spirit, and it ends up not being as successful. Well, that's the other side of the balance. Without training, there's no way I would have even had the resources to tap into. What happens in a teaching situation is, even if I haven't plotted the whole course of a class, I'll look at people across the room and assess where they are and what they need, either based on a stated need or just based on what I see. And all of the extensive training that I've had really helps to provide cues in my head, and it becomes instinctive. In fact, it's really almost better to teach in an instinctive way through lots and lots of book learning and field learning, just on the mat with people who really, really know what they're talking about. This is my first retreat as a participant. I have to say that it's nice to know that I can, grab a nap if I want to without feeling like I need to be available for somebody else, although I haven't done that yet. I love getting to just enjoy, lay on my mat and soak it in. And I'm not worried about the next class I'm going to teach, and I'm not worried about whether I'm going to walk around and help adjust. I can really just be on the mat and be a little bit selfish and receive. I came here to get filled up, and it's working out pretty well.
You think it'll help your teaching to be in this space now?
Hands down. I've already learned so much this weekend in the couple of classes that we've had that I'm going to take back to my classes next week. It's a shame when we don't get a chance to partake as a participant in a class. A lot of teachers in my area feel the same thing, that we teach a lot and we don't get a chance to take classes. And it's a shame, because you can't teach from an empty well. No pun intended with the Center for Living Well. But I came to get my well filled so that I could be a better teacher. And it's amazing, just the little adjustments that I learned from the different approach that somebody's taking, a different sequence. It makes me a better teacher. I think it's important to say that a lot of Christians in our area are still struggling with whether yoga can be a Christian practice. I work for a Christian ministry full-time, and for the first 2 years I worked there, they wouldn't allow me to teach even a free yoga class at lunch. It's important to note, I had to think about that again. A lot of people approach me about the kind of yoga that I teach. I work in a Christian ministry that's been in ministry for 60 years. There are people there from a variety of backgrounds, and for 2 years they wouldn't allow me to teach yoga in the office because people were just freaked out by the whole concept of Christians doing yoga. They weren't sure that Christians were entitled or that it was okay to do yoga. And it bothers me as a practitioner and as a teacher, because I know that I found God in a deeper way on the yoga mat than I ever have through any number of Bible studies that I've done. So a big win in my life this year was when the Human Resources Department called me up and said, people have been asking if you could teach a yoga class. Now, we can't call it yoga, but we'd like to have you teach a yoga class. So I call it Selah, after the word of the Psalms that means to pause and meditate. And they really love the class. They're addicted to it. And they the people who come really do love to worship, and we call it worship on a mat. And I constantly run into people in the hall saying, "What is that Selah thing?" And I have to explain to them, you just have to come and see it. It requires getting down on a mat, and it requires worship, and you need to come in stretchy pants, and that's all I require. And people are delighted to show up, and they always crave more. Now they're asking, where can I get a full class? And even one of the ladies attending here works with me, and she's come to my lunchtime classes, which are nowhere near as in depth as the classes that we have at retreat, because at work we're not wearing this. We have to kind of do what we can in our suits, you know, during the lunch hour. And she's asking already, you know, how can we find more Christ-centered yoga classes throughout the city where we can experience this on a regular basis. And I'm wondering if that's a voice from God saying that maybe I should teach more classes. Which is the same question Lily asked, and I kind of talked all the way around that. I have a great story to share. There's a lady who comes to my lunchtime yoga classes at work who is overweight. I had to choose that word carefully. She's overweight, can't touch her toes. She doesn't exercise on a regular basis at all. She came because some of the gals who'd been coming were explaining to her the spiritual transformation that they're experiencing in class. So she comes and she does what she can. It's a challenge for her to get on the floor. But she self-moderates in every position, and she's been blessed so much from the environment, the worship environment in the class. But the amazing thing is that she's gained more flexibility, and even in the limited way that she's able to move, she's gained greater flexibility and the ability to do things that she hadn't done before. And she never misses a class if she can. And I have another student in a different class who had never done yoga before, but she had heard that it's a good thing to do. And she had had pelvic floor issues. She was about to have surgery because her pelvic floor was weak, and that's a problem for women with regard to things not staying dry. So she started coming to the class about 6 months before that surgery was scheduled. And she came in one day about 5 months later and said, "Donna, guess what? I canceled the surgery. My pelvic floor is totally strong, and now I don't need to have the surgery anymore." And this is a woman who was just had very limited mobility and didn't even know what to do. She had no idea what it was that was broken. She just knew what the symptoms were. And so many people have discovered new things about themselves just through the practice of stopping and breathing and listening and becoming aware. And that's what just thrills me to continue teaching. I see the self-discovery in every individual every time we have class.